You know the feeling. You sit down at your desk. You have the books, the laptop, and the coffee. You have the intention to work. You tell yourself, I'm going to crush this study session. But then 10 minutes pass, maybe 15, and suddenly you aren't reading. You're staring at a wall, or worse, you're scrolling through your phone, completely unaware of how you got there. You didn't decide to stop working, your brain just drifted. And then comes the guilt. You look at the clock, realize you've wasted an hour, and the panic sets in. You wonder, why can't I just sit still? Do I have a focus problem? Am I just lazy? Here is the truth. You are not lazy, and you probably don't have a broken brain. You are simply fighting against millions of years of evolutionary biology with the wrong tools. Most of us were taught what to learn, but we were never taught how to tune our brains to actually learn it. We try to force focus through sheer willpower, treating our minds like machines that can run at full speed for 8 hours a day. But the brain doesn't work like a machine. It works like a muscle. It has rhythms, it has chemicals, and it has limits. In the next 20 minutes, we are going to dismantle the myths about grinding and hustling. Instead, we are going to look at the neurobiology of attention. I'm going to walk you through 5 specific psychologically proven frameworks, not just tips, but actual protocols that will allow you to hack your dopamine, regulate your energy, and trick your brain into a state of deep flow. This is the science of focus. Let's begin. Before we get to the tricks, we have to understand what focus actually is biologically. We tend to think of focus as a spotlight. You turn it on and it shines on your book. But neuroscientists view focus differently. To the brain, focus isn't just about what you are paying attention to. It is actually a process of suppression. Focus is the ability to ignore everything else. When you enter a state of deep concentration, your brain is engaging a top-down control mechanism. Your prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain, is sending signals to suppress the sensory input from your environment. It's actively shouting down the sound of the traffic outside, the itch on your arm, and the urge to check Instagram. This process requires a massive amount of metabolic energy. This is why focus feels physically exhausting. You are literally burning glucose to inhibit impulses. The problem is that most people try to enter this high-energy state cold. They sit down and expect to be at 100% focus instantly. But the brain needs a warm-up. It needs the right neurochemical cocktail. Specifically, a balance of norepinephrine for alertness, acetylcholine for focus, and dopamine for motivation. If you don't have these chemicals present, you're essentially trying to drive a car without gas. You can push the pedal as hard as you want, but you aren't going anywhere. So, how do we trigger these chemicals on command? That brings us to our first psychological trick. You have probably heard of the Pomodoro technique. Work for 25 minutes, break for 5. And for many, that works. But if you want to study faster and retain complex information, 25 minutes is often too short. Biologically, our bodies operate on cycles. You know about the circadian rhythm, the 24-hour sleep-wake cycle. But while you're awake, you go through smaller cycles called ultradian rhythms. Research suggests that the human brain can only sustain high-intensity focus for about 90 minutes before it needs a significant reset. This is the natural cycle of alertness in the human body. When you start a study session, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes just to get into the zone. If you stop at 25 minutes, you're quitting right as your brain is reaching peak performance. The trick here is to structure your studying in 90-minute ultradian blocks. Think of it like a gym workout. You wouldn't do one bicep curl and walk away. You do a set. Here is the protocol. Set a timer for 90 minutes. For the first 5 to 10 minutes, expect it to feel hard. That is your brain transitioning. From minute 10 to about minute 70, you will likely hit your peak flow state. This is where learning happens fastest. Then, for the last 20 minutes, you will feel your focus start to flicker. That is your brain running out of acetylcholine. When the 90 minutes are up, you must stop. And this is the crucial part. You need a real break, not a scroll on TikTok break, a biological reset. Get sunlight, walk around, or just sit with your eyes closed. You need to let your dopamine replenish. If you can do just 2 or 3 of these 90-minute Ultradian cycles in a day, you will outwork someone who spends 10 hours half studying in the library. Now, knowing you need to study for 90 minutes is one thing. Actually sitting down to do it is another. This is where we face the biggest enemy of productivity, procrastination. But let's look at procrastination scientifically. It is usually a battle between 2 parts of your brain. Your limbic system, the ancient emotional center, wants comfort and immediate pleasure. Your prefrontal cortex wants long-term success. When the task looks too big, like study for final exam, the limbic system perceives it as a threat. It triggers a pain response. This is what Dr. Andrew Huberman calls limbic friction. The trick to overcoming this isn't willpower. It's cognitive reframing. We need to lower the barriers so the limbic system doesn't freak out. We call this the 2-minute entry, or the stupidly small goal. Don't tell yourself you're going to study for 90 minutes. That's too heavy. Tell yourself, I am just going to open the book and read 1 paragraph. Or, I am just going to write the title of my essay. Psychologically, this exploits a phenomenon called the Zeigarnik Effect. The Zeigarnik Effect states that the human brain hates unfinished tasks. Once you open the book and read that first sentence, a mental loop opens. Your brain now feels a compulsion to close that loop. It's much harder to start than it is to continue. So when you feel that resistance, negotiate with your brain. Say, I will do this for 5 minutes. If I hate it after 5 minutes, I'm allowed to quit. 99% of the time, once you pass that 5-minute threshold, the limbic friction disappears, the norepinephrine kicks in, and you won't want to stop. You have tricked your brain into engagement. Let's move to the third trick. This one is about your environment, but not in the way you think. There's a concept in psychology called affordance. It means that when you look at an object, your brain automatically simulates the action you can take with it. If you see a handle, your brain simulates pulling it. If you see a phone, your brain simulates unlocking it. This happens subconsciously, milliseconds before you even think about it. If your phone is sitting face up on your desk while you study, even if it's on silent, your brain is spending energy. It is actively using metabolic resources to not pick it up. You are fighting the affordance of the phone. This creates a low-level cognitive leak that drains your focus battery. To study faster, you must eliminate visual affordances that aren't related to studying. This is the rule. Out of sight, out of mind is literally true in neuroscience. Put the phone in another room, not in your pocket, not face down, another room. But we can flip this. We can use positive affordances. If you want to study faster, set up your desk the night before. Open the textbook to the exact page. Have the pen cap off. Have the notebook open. When you walk into the room in the morning, the first affordance your brain sees is the open book. The path of least resistance is now to study. You're designing your environment to make focus the default option rather than a choice you have to make. Now that you're focused, how do you actually learn the material? Most students use blocked practice. That means they study topic A for an hour, then topic B for an hour, then topic C for an hour. It feels good. It feels organized. But studies show this is actually the slowest way to learn for long-term retention. The psychological trick here is called interleaving. Interleaving means mixing up related topics within a single study session. Instead of doing AAA, BBB, you do ABC, BAC. Here's why this works. When you do blocked practice, your brain gets lazy. It recognizes the pattern and stops working hard to retrieve the information. You get a false sense of fluency. You think you know it, but you just recognize the pattern. Interleaving forces your brain to constantly reload the context. Wait, which formula do I use here? Is this a cardiovascular problem or a respiratory one? This creates what psychologists call desirable difficulty. It feels harder, it feels frustrating, You might feel like you're learning slower because you're making more mistakes. But that struggle is the feeling of neurons forming stronger connections. By forcing your brain to constantly switch gears, you are building a much deeper, more robust understanding of the material. When the exam comes, you won't just remember the answers. You will understand the distinctions between the concepts. Don't aim for easy studying. If studying feels easy, you're probably not learning much. Embrace the confusion. That is where the growth happens. Finally, trick number 5. This is the secret weapon of top performers, from CEOs to elite athletes. It addresses the question, what do you do after the study session? Remember, learning doesn't happen while you study. While you study, you're just triggering the neurons. The actual rewiring, the solidification of memory, happens during deep rest. If you finish a heavy study session and immediately jump on social media, looking at bright lights and consuming high dopamine content, you are interfering with the memory consolidation process. You are overwriting the data you just tried to save. To study faster, you need to master the art of NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. This can be a 20-minute power nap or a practice like Yoga Nidra, but it can also be something as simple as the gaze dilating. When we focus, our visual field narrows. This causes stress. To reset, go to a window or go outside. Look at the horizon. Soften your eyes. Let your vision go panoramic. This panoramic vision sends a signal to your brainstem to turn off the alertness system and engage the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode. Doing this for just 10 minutes after a study block can significantly increase the amount of information you retain. You are essentially hitting the save button on your document before closing the laptop. Focus is not a magic power. It is not a personality trait. It is a biological process that you can engineer. You now have the toolkit. Respect your ultradian rhythms, work in 90-minute waves, overcome limbic friction by just committing to the first 5 minutes, manage affordances by hiding distractions and preparing your tools, use interleaving to create desirable difficulty, and prioritize deep rest to consolidate your memory. The goal isn't to turn yourself into a robot that never gets tired. The goal is to work with your biology, not against it. So here is your challenge for today. Pick just one of these tricks. Maybe it's the phone in the other room. Maybe it's the 90-minute timer. Try it for one session. You might find that you can get more done in 90 minutes than you used to get done in an entire day. Go give it a try. And thanks for listening.